I think I have loved Jake since we were kids. We were next-door neighbors and constant playmates. It was the most natural thing that we became best friends. Jake lived with his grandparents. He was always over my house. I think he enjoyed being part of a normal family. So I made him play with dollhouses with me. He taught me how to play baseball. We rode our bikes and flew kites. We played princess and monsters. Jake was always my knight in shining armor. We played in sandboxes, playgrounds, and even did our homework together. Jake and I were inseparable. When we got to junior high, we were each other's dates. It was easier that way. We were always together anyway. I didn't have to worry if I was pretty enough to be asked by other guys. Jake didn't have to be nervous about asking another girl. We did a lot of crazy things together. Once, when we were 10 years old, Jake dared me to drink some of his dad's brandy. It tasted awful. I threw up right after and got a terrible headache the next day. Jake teased me a lot about puking, so I just pretended that I didn't remember anything that happened. That's how we were, always joking and teasing. Since we were always together, we just both assumed that we would always be there for each other, no matter what. We got teased a lot, especially by our families. They called us Mr. and Mrs. We just shrugged it off. Besides, I didn't think it was so bad if I ended up marrying Jake when we got older. It would be great to marry my best friend. When I would think about it, I always pictured myself at a wedding with me walking down the aisle with my hand on Jake's arm. It was like it was foretold. I already met my soulmate when I was just 4 years old. Do you want to meet and marry your soulmate too? Click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to leave a great comment below. But as we got older, things began to change. I guess it's only natural that Jake started hanging out with other boys. I had other girlfriends too. But my best friend was always going to be Jake. Nothing was ever going to change that. One day, Jake went over to my house and brought a new friend along. "Hey, Sarah," he said, "this is Gilbert." When I looked at Gilbert, my heart totally stopped. He was the most handsome boy I had ever seen. When the sun hit the top of his head, his golden hair shone like a halo. I felt like I was looking at an angel. "Hi, Sarah," Gilbert said. He shook my hand and I felt the electricity pass between us. Jake asked me if they could hang out with me that day. Of course, I said yes. Gilbert turned out to be a great guy. It even helped that he looked like a model, too. He was funny and he was a good listener. He always smiled when Jake and I got into our arguments. I have to admit that I developed a little crush on Gilbert. How could I not? He was so handsome and kind. So, for months on end, it became the three of us. We watched movies together, we had silly picnics in the park. The summer before we all left for college, our parents agreed that we could all take a trip with just the three of us. So we went to the beach house of Gilbert's family and stayed overnight. After dinner, Gilbert brought out some drinks. We giggled and laughed a lot, knowing that we weren't old enough to drink yet. But we did it anyway. I wasn't used to drinking and I got drunk really fast. The next thing I knew, I was on the couch cuddling with Gilbert. "You're so handsome," I told him while I stroked his cheek. I could see that Gilbert was getting uncomfortable. "Sarah, I think you've had enough to drink," he told me. He tried to push my hand away, but I refused, and instead I did the most aggressive thing I have ever done in my life. I kissed Gilbert full on the lips. I didn't know if it was his first kiss, but it was definitely mine. I only stopped kissing Gilbert when I heard the sound of something breaking. When I looked up, I saw Jake looking at us with a shocked look on his face. Somehow, that look brought me to my senses. I blushed, stood up, and apologized. "Sorry, I think I've had enough to drink," I told the boys. I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. I splashed some water on my face to clear my head. I felt so guilty about doing something like that, especially in front of Jake. When I remembered his face, I remember seeing anger, disbelief, and a little bit of disgust. I knew I loved Jake, but was I in love with him? Should I have kissed him instead? It was a huge mistake to kiss Gilbert, but he was just so handsome. Is this how it felt loving two different people at the same time? I felt so confused, and I totally dreaded facing the two of them again the next morning. During breakfast the next day, Gilbert tried to talk to me. "Sarah, about last night," he started to say, but Jake butted in. "She doesn't remember," he said. "When we drank some of my dad's brandy when we were 10 years old, Sarah did a lot of silly things, but she forgot all about them the next day." Although I remember kissing Gilbert, I decided to play along. I lied and said I didn't remember doing anything the night before. It was just easier to pretend that nothing happened. That memorable evening was the last one we had in a long time. I was off to a different college than the two boys. I knew I would only see them during the holidays. I was going to miss being with Jake all the time. But it wasn't all that bad. We were still texting and calling each other a lot. I was glad to hear that Jake was still hanging out with Gilbert. I was bummed to hear that neither of them were coming back home for Christmas or spring break. Jake said that they had a lot of things planned with the boys. I just reminded him to be good and not to kiss random girls. "You're the random kisser," he teased me. It was a good thing that he couldn't see my face because I still remember that awkward night. So I didn't see the boys until the next summer. On my first day back, I heard a frantic knock on my bedroom door. I jumped out of bed quickly and opened the door. Jake was standing there, all tanned and smiling. I hugged him fiercely. Then I felt another pair of arms around us. It was Gilbert. It was a nice three-way hug from a group of old friends. That summer almost felt like we were never apart. We spent every day together, just trying to catch up on missed time. I felt a little jealous of some of the things Jake and Gilbert did without me. It sounded like they had a lot of fun in their college. "What about you, Sarah?" Gilbert asked. "Break any hearts in that fancy college of yours?" I laughed a little too loudly and shook my head. Now that Jake was here, I realized that he was the reason why I never fell for anyone in college. No one understood me like Jake did. I looked at him and knew that he felt exactly the same way. It was a surprise when he asked Gilbert to go home early that day. "I've got to talk to Sarah for a bit," he explained to Gilbert. Gilbert nodded and left. Jake asked me to go for a walk. I was feeling kind of excited and nervous. What was he going to say? Was he finally going to let me know that he felt something between us? Were we finally finalizing that we were an item now? So we took a walk in the park. We sat down on a bench and he held my hand. "There's something I want to tell you, Sarah," he began with all seriousness. I thought to myself, this is it. It doesn't matter to him that I kissed Gilbert last year. He knows that I was just drunk. He's going to tell me that he loves me too. "I love you, Sarah," he said. I beamed. "I've loved you from when we were kids. I've wanted to tell you something for a long time. I know that you'll understand. Sarah, I'm gay." What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How can Jake be gay? I mean, he just told me that he loved me. Then he said something else that was totally unbelievable. He said that he was in love with Gilbert, and Gilbert felt the same way about him. I just sat there and stared at Jake. Of all the things he could have told me that day, this was the last thing that I expected. I reminded him that he was upset when I kissed Gilbert. All this time, I thought he was jealous because he was in love with me. Then Jake laughed. "I knew you were just pretending that you forgot about that night," he said. "I was trying to save your dignity. I also know that you kissed Gilbert because he's so handsome. I thought that was the reason I fell for him too, but it's not just his looks. You know how Gilbert is. He's so great." Damn, Jake. He knew me too well. But there was something he knew nothing about. He didn't know that I was in love with him. He kept talking about wanting his own family. He never felt like he was complete because he never knew his own parents. He was scared to come out to other people, especially to his grandparents. He kept asking me if I understood and if I was still his best friend. I couldn't reply. My heart felt like it was being crushed in my chest. So I stood up and left. It was just too humiliating. I didn't see either Jake or Gilbert again that summer. It was a relief when it was finally time to go back to school. I went through a dating craze when I went back to college, and I rarely went home. I didn't want to see anyone from my past. It was probably all over town by now. Everybody probably knew that Jake was gay. I couldn't face everyone feeling sorry for me. So I dated as many boys as I could. I needed to prove to myself that men could fall in love with me. I needed to prove to myself that I didn't need Jake's love. So I ended up dating Wesley, and he became my boyfriend. Then, one day, I was pregnant. There was no other place to go but home. I packed my bags and went home in tears. My life was such a mess. Wesley was just as shocked as I was. He didn't want to be a father, just like I didn't want to become a mom. Not yet, anyway. I was too young. I wanted to get married to a great guy first and have a honeymoon. I wanted a career. I didn't want to be bogged down with a child. I wasn't ready. I don't know who called him, but suddenly, Jake was back home with me too. He knew I was going through a hard time. We both cried a lot together. I feel so alone, I told him. But Jake told me something that completely opened up my mind. I felt alone for a long time too. It's not easy being gay in this town. I know people are judging me. I had hoped for your support when I came out. Then the gravity of what I did suddenly dawned on me. I kept saying that Jake and I were best friends, but I left when he needed me most. It's okay, Sarah, he said. I knew it was a shock. He told me that he loved me. He told me that being gay wasn't going to change the fact that I would always be his best friend. Then he told me that having a baby was one of the best things that could happen to anyone. I don't want this baby, Jake, I replied. You can't mean that you want an abortion, Jake asked me with an angry voice. You can't do that. I sobbed and I nodded. I knew I could never do that. But what else were my options? You can do this. I'll be with you the whole time. You won't be alone, he said. This baby is going to be so loved by everyone. He begged me not to give the baby away. He reminded me that he grew up without parents. I nodded and agreed. I could be a mother to this baby if I wanted to. After a couple of weeks, I started to feel better with Jake by my side. He was my rock. I got my strength from him. Then one day, he told me some more news. He and Gilbert decided to get married. I must have cried buckets of tears that day. I was so happy for him. I knew I could never have Jake. Even if I had deserted him in the past, he was still there for me. I was happy that he was happy. Somehow, the thought of Jake and Gilbert stopped tormenting me. I loved them both very much, and I finally decided that there was no room for jealousy if I loved someone. Jake would always be my first love, and if I loved him enough, I would be happy for him too. They decided to get hitched a few months before I gave birth. Jake asked me to walk him down the aisle. His grandparents didn't approve of their marriage, but I was going to make sure that their wedding was going to be full of love and support. It felt like the most natural thing. I saw this happen in my head when I was just a child. I was wearing a lovely dress, and Jake wore a tuxedo. Gilbert was waiting for us. It broke my heart a little to let Jake go, but if I was going to lose him to someone, it was good that I was going to give him to a good person like Gilbert. They never even left for a honeymoon. My 2 boys stayed with me during the whole pregnancy. You're so lucky, Sarah, Gilbert said. As much as I want to be a father, I guess I'll just settle for being your baby's favorite uncle. Hell no, Jake cried. I'm gonna be this baby's favorite person. It warmed my heart to hear them that way. The baby wasn't here yet, and already they were becoming fathers. As usual, Gilbert agreed to give me anything that I wanted. It was great. It was like having 2 husbands that were super supportive. They took care of me. They held my hair back when I threw up. They rubbed lotion on my growing belly so I wouldn't get stretch marks. They even went out in the middle of the night when I wanted to eat some pickles. When I went into labor, I was brave enough to endure the pain. I was going to give this baby the best life it could ever have. So I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I waited to feel my motherly instincts kick in. I looked at my baby and wondered if I could do the thing that I knew I had to do. When Jake and Gilbert arrived to visit, I saw them hold the baby in their arms. They looked like a perfect family. I'm finally giving you a wedding gift. Sorry it took so long, I told my boys. You're holding her in your arms. Then I handed Gilbert a stack of papers. It was for my baby's adoption. I was giving up my rights as a mother. I was giving them my baby. Of all the years I've known Jake, I've never seen him cry until that day. And I never really realized just how much I loved him. I loved all 3 of them. I was giving my baby to the best parents in the world.
The mall was almost empty on a Friday evening. I pushed to my feet and looked up. No going back from here. I started to worry. I had yet to shop for my secret road trip. I was happy and scared at the same time. I didn't know what to do. My eyes were wide open as I adjusted my sight to the painful darkness. I automatically got up when I realized that I was lying in a pool of water. I figured that the water was flooding that room at knee level. I was scared. I reached for my backpack to take out my phone. I had to use its flashlight. Unfortunately, it wasn't working anymore because it was damaged by my fall. I took my camera instead, and an idea came to mind. I started vlogging while using the light from the video to guide me as I walked. Talking to yourself releases some tension within you, so I hoped that this would help me deal with my fear. I continued walking while talking to my camera and soon realized that I was on a seemingly abandoned floor of the mall, with 2 old and rusty escalators above me. I continued to walk, and when my imagination started to go wild, I walked faster. I ended up running in fear until I reached the dry part of the area. Panting wildly, I sat on the escalator to take a rest. I took my backpack and hugged it as I tried my best not to cry. Moments later, I heard echoes of a child's laughter and a chain being dragged on the floor somewhere. I felt goosebumps rising on my chest in an instant. Hello? I put my camera in front of me, but I didn't see anything. Look guys, I think I've got company, I whispered to my vlog. The child was like mumbling something, and his voice became louder and clearer whenever I talked more. It might be the boy who I saw earlier, so I decided to follow the voice. I stopped when I saw a small figure standing ahead. Excuse me? I'm lost. Can you help me? The figure took a step forward, causing me to step back in caution. I gripped my camera tighter when it started to speak. Mom? He took another step forward, and the light from my camera revealed that it was really that boy, as he was wearing the same white shirt. It felt so much better now, knowing that I was not alone. What are you doing here? It's cold and scary down here. We have to go back up. I was looking for Cotton. I was confused. Cotton? You're looking for Cotton at this place? Yes, because I'm sure I saw her running inside here. I was confused for a second, and then I realized that he was referring to someone. Are you talking about a girl? No, I'm talking about that fat white cat. I named her Cotton because she looks like one. I brought her home last night, but she came back here. Have you seen her? He looked so cute and innocent, and his voice was tender. So, your cat's name is Cotton, and she is white. But did you know that cotton is not absorbent or pure white? It's a tannish color. I pulled out random trivia to make a connection with him. Oh, I didn't know that. I will change her name then. But I have to find her first. She must be around here. Okay, but I don't think she's here. Our parents are probably worried about us. We have to get out of here now. Okay, I'm Ashley. What's your name? Matthew, but you can call me Matt. Okay, Matt. Say hi to my vlog. I playfully urged him, but he only smiled at the camera in a shy way. I tried to interview him more, but then I turned my camera back to my bag when I felt that he wasn't comfortable with it. I held his hand as we started looking for a way to get out of there. We reached a corner and immediately turned left. There was a lit-up hallway with an elevator at the end of it. Thank God there was a way out, but we haven't seen Cotton yet. I remembered the shops that had closed already. We have to go home before the mall closes, or else we'll be trapped in here. You can look for her tomorrow. My friends and I will help you. It's getting late already. We have to go home. Okay. I pressed the ground floor button and was relieved to know that the elevator was working. Moments later, we finally got our way back up to the ground floor. The elevator door opened, and it was dark again. As soon as we stepped out, the door immediately closed, and we were now in absolute darkness. Oh no! I wanted to cry when I realized that the mall was closed already. I was starving and my throat was dry as hell. I'm hungry. Matt started pulling my hand. We have to eat something first before finding a solution. There was unlimited food in the food court anyway, but the problem is we can't see anything. I thought about my camera again, and then I realized that I left my backpack down there. Should we go back? Matt insisted that we should, but the elevator wouldn't open anymore. Great. We started wandering around, grasping for some things, hoping we would find food. But instead, we grabbed some weird and unexpected stuff. I had mistaken a feather duster as a giant hedgehog, and a belt as an anaconda. We also hoped that there were guards or store managers roaming around for some random inspection, but we were out of luck. Okay, Matt, I think we'd better sleep and wait until the mall opens again in the morning. Luckily, we found a couch nearby where we could sleep in comfort. I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't. My stomach hurt from starving, and the darkness was bothering me. I was also thinking about my parents and friends. They might all be worried about me right now. No one knew that I went to the mall. If Matt wasn't here, I might have broken down in fear already. Morning came, and finally, I could see everything. Matt was still sleeping, so I woke him up to eat. We headed to the toilet first and ate in the food court. He wanted to eat a burger, so I recooked a stored supply for him. Ow! Matt screamed as he excitedly bit on the burger. I think I burned my tongue. Being responsible and taking care of Matt made me distracted and entertained instead of being anxious and paranoid. Several hours had passed, and the mall hadn't opened yet. What is happening? I started to get frustrated about my broken phone again. I have to find a way to contact my parents or the police. We walked to the gadget store to borrow a phone and SIM card, but they were all closed and locked. Same with the internet and computer centers. We went to the appliances store, which was open to my relief. I turned one TV on and saw the news that the mall would be locked down for a few weeks because of some legal issues, but would be opened once everything was settled down. Oh my God, when would that be? I became desperate and worried again, but Matt comforted me. Don't worry, Ashley, you're not alone. I'm here with you. Somehow he made me feel better, but we had to find a way out of there as soon as possible. We went to the area where there were glass walls to catch people's attention from the outside, but the aluminum fences and shutters had been pulled down and locked into place. We also tried the alarm in the emergency exit doors, but they were not working. When we got tired of looking for solutions, we decided to sleep for the rest of the day in the most comfortable bed in the furniture shop. I woke up in the middle of the night only to find out that Matt was missing. Matt, where are you? Matt? I started to panic. I turned my flashlight on and looked for him everywhere. I was worried and scared at the same time. It felt different when he wasn't with me. I never felt so alone in my whole life. I continued looking for him while ignoring the darkness and finally found him in the stuffed toys shop. He was carrying a white cat stuffed toy. I have been looking for you everywhere. Please don't leave me again. Come on, let's go back to sleep. I angrily told him as I pulled him by his arm. No, he yelled as he pulled his arm back in an aggressive way, and I was stunned for a moment. It was the first time that I saw him mad. Sorry, Ashley. I was looking for Cotton. I thought it was her, but it was only a toy. I felt relieved when he shifted back to his normal sweet boy persona. Don't go anywhere. We have to stick together. When we get out of here, we'll ask for some help outside to look for Cotton. Okay, but don't be afraid when you're alone. Ghosts are scary, Matt. I have been here for the past 60 years and there are no ghosts in here, Ashley. Don't worry. I only laughed at his joke. I urged him to go back to sleep with me and wait until the morning and hope that the mall would open. But it didn't. Instead of breaking down, Matt convinced me to look at the brighter side. An idea then came to mind. I opened the power from the breaker rooms and we started enjoying each part of the mall where it wasn't locked. We spent our whole night watching movies in the cinemas, eating whatever we wanted in the supermarket and cooking in the food court, playing arcades and some other stupid things. We treated the mall as a huge mansion where we live. After putting some makeup on in the makeup store, I also tried to put some on Matt, but he didn't like it because he thought it felt sticky on his face. But I insisted. I then gave him a mirror so he could see my masterpiece. I couldn't stop laughing when I saw the look on his face. He looked horrified in an adorable way. Please don't do this again, Ashley. I'll think about it, I smirked. I then went to the department store to try on some clothes. The mannequins there looked so beautiful and real. I took off the clothes of a male one to check the inside. They really looked so close to a human body. I was running my hand on its muscular chest, admiring it when Matt suddenly appeared behind me. What are you doing, Ashley? He innocently asked. I was just checking the quality of the wood that they used to make this. I swear I thought my face turned into a tomato. I was blushing hard with shame. Matt had been convincing me to go back to the basement to find Cotton, but I refused. I don't want to go back down there. Later that night, I put Matt to sleep first and made sure he was comfortable. While I was putting a blanket over him, I noticed a deep scar around his left ankle. I wondered what happened to it. He had fallen asleep already, so I would just ask him about it tomorrow. It was around 1 in the morning and I woke up to the sound of footsteps nearby. Matt was still asleep beside me. I got up and blinked when a flashlight was directed right in front of my face. Finally, a security guard. Who are you and why are you here? He asked. Thank God you're here, sir. We have been trapped here for 2 days already. Wait a minute. It's you, the missing girl, he shouted when he saw my face. Then he called the cops, and after just a few minutes, police patrol, the media people, and my parents arrived at the mall. My mom and dad were crying as they hugged me. The cops and media started interviewing me about how I got trapped at the mall. I told them everything that happened, but they seemed to be ignoring Matt. So what are you going to do with the boy? I asked the cops, but they only exchanged weird looks. Can he come with me? I asked again, but they were exchanging questioning looks, including my parents. Come on, Matt, come with me, we'll take you home. Matt smiled and rushed toward me to hold my hand. He told me he wanted to have a moment with me, and so I asked everyone to leave us for a while. Leave you with who? Mom asked, as if she couldn't see Matthew. With Matt. You didn't tell us that you had a boyfriend already. No, he's not my boyfriend. Can't you see that he's a young boy? Her entrapment in the mall might have affected her mental state. We have to bring her to the therapist. She might have suffered trauma, my dad whispered to my mom. But I heard it. Dad, I'm not crazy. It was only for 2 days and I enjoyed it anyway. I mean, who wouldn't be happy being trapped in a mall? Everything was free. They kept ignoring everything about Matt. I will go home by myself later, Ashley. Thank you for taking care of me. I will continue to look for Cotton. Don't worry about me. I hugged him before we parted and told him that we would see each other again. I was so persistent about Matt for the next few days, but no one would listen to me. They were acting like he didn't exist, so I ended up having a session with a therapist. He was an old, experienced man. I told him everything that happened at the mall and what I felt the entire time. What he told me next gave me goosebumps again. I remembered a news story about a boy with the same name who was well known in our neighborhood at that time. He was so protective of lost and stray animals that he requested his father build a home for them. Every day after school, he wandered around looking for cats and dogs and would bring them home. He went missing and was never found. Matthew reminded me of him. That can't be Matt. I couldn't accept the fact that he wasn't real. Everything was real. He looked so real and his body felt warm, just like how a human body would feel like. And we certainly had that connection. I don't think I'm crazy and I don't have any third eye or any paranormal gifts anyway. There was only one way to find out. I remembered that I had evidence of his existence and it was in my vlogging camera. I have to find that backpack in the basement. I have to go back there. It was the only way to prove that I wasn't crazy. I'm just a little unwell, maybe. I asked Anna and Abby to come with me to the mall. We told security that I was the missing girl last time and asked help from him, so he guided us back to the basement. It only took us a few minutes to find my backpack. I immediately opened my camera and played the video that I took. I fast-forwarded to the part where I told Matt to say hi. I was shocked to see that I was the only one in the video, and there were no signs of Matthew anywhere. I kept replaying it, but I looked like I was talking to an invisible person. I started to cry when I realized the truth. The boy who kept me sane when I got trapped at the mall,